Thank you. Okay, I would like to give you, I would like to provide some insight what DNS4EU means in the understanding of our consortium, which applied and was granted the project by European Commission, and basically from time to time we are hearing different opinions, different ideas of what DNS4EU is or what DNS4EU will be. So I would like to share our insight and some more details, although the project is in a very early stage. So I'll try to share as much as possible, and we'll be happy to respond to any questions. So first of all, I will start with the DNS4EU goals. The goals. One of the main goals expected by the European Commission is to contribute to EU's digital sovereignty. As the European Commission is basically worried that, especially on the public DNS level, the European infrastructure is too much dependent on the services outside EU. And they see it as a risk. So they would like to make sure that one of the pillars of connectivity and digital infrastructure, DNS, is also provided and available from within European Union. One of the major goals, very ambitious goals of the project, is to serve DNS to 100 million people across European Union. What we see here is that just going just with the public resolver wouldn't be sufficient to achieve this goal. So I'll put more clarity on this. What is our plan? One of the major goals is to follow outstanding privacy policy and privacy rules. I mean, the very least baseline is to be fully compliant with GDPR, but we want to go much further. And last but not least, European Commission and us as the consortium, we want to provide a specific security layer on top of the DNS, on top of the DNS services. And I'll provide more details on this particular topic. Behind the DNS4EU, there is a consortium, so it's not just a single party, and it's not just Whalebone, which I am CTO of, but it's a number of names, including, for example, CZNIC, working on the node resolver development and strongly contributing to the DNS4EU as node resolver is understood as one of the cornerstones of the DNS4EU. Then also some other research institutions, CSIRTs, also legal companies, etc., that together form the whole consortium. And these are eligible to some funding, some contribution from the European Commission to get the DNS4EU up and running. However, DNS4EU will not contribute anything for the operation. It's just for the setup. What do we understand when we say DNS4EU as a project? What we see at the moment is that there will be 4 main outcomes. First of all, or maybe a bit surprising outcome of the project, may be the threat intelligence. So there will be multiple researches running on the threat intelligence topics, and they will also be provided as an outcome of the project. I will get to it in more detail. And then we have 3 specific DNS-related topics and DNS-related services or outcomes. One will be DNS for telcos, the other one DNS for government, and the third one, which is usually mostly understood as the DNS4EU itself, is the DNS for public, the public DNS service. So speaking, I'll start with the threat intelligence, which is maybe the most surprising part or most unexpected to some extent. There will be two major threats running on the threat intelligence research. One is the actual analysis of the DNS traffic that will run through the DNS4EU resolvers. And the traffic will be used to identify new threats, new malicious domains, or to tune accuracy of the current detection methods. The other one on the right is something where we aim to bring a very specific value to European citizens, and that's going into very detail on the regional and local threats. Because what we see, we have quite a good visibility in the threat in Europe. And we as a well-known, or basically the whole consortium, what we see, the regional phishing and malware campaigns are usually late to be detected and late to be protected by the global services and by the global company. We want to change that. Yeah, the project gives us a very good focus. The project basically gives us a list of countries. Hey, this is a list of countries that you should protect, and we will go one by one, and we will make sure we do our best to protect them, and we will involve the local stakeholders for that. So that's why it's called regional intelligence exchange, because we will involve as many regional stakeholders as possible, including the commercial ones that are interested in, for example, protecting their clients, such as financial institutions, such as parcel delivery services, which brands are being very frequently misused. Speaking of DNS for telcos, what we would like to do here is to combine the approach of a public resolver with a resolver that will be available for telco operators. Because, as mentioned in the goals, one of the major goals is to onboard 100 million people, and that would be basically impossible without telcos or without some large-scale deployments. And we know, and I mean it's being repeatedly proven by the data, that telcos are still the ones that provide the DNS resolution services to most people. It's the majority of people are handled by telcos. So we want to go with them. We don't want to go against them. We don't want to add yet another public service, but we want to give the telco the opportunity to host the resolvers on their premises, to join the federated DNS resolver. Not only join, but also to use it as a primary service. So basically, to switch to DNS4EU completely from their current DNS resolvers. There are some values for telcos, for end users. For telcos, what we see definitely a compliant with DOH, optionally DOQ, DOT, etc. out of the box. So they will not have to care about that. They will get a national regulatory compliance, and of course they will have to get all the requirements of the telco grade resolver they may require. For the end user, on the other hand, the end user gets lower latency. Rather than going outside the telco network, they will get the responses directly from the telco network, and they will get a very transparent privacy policy, because the telco will have to adhere to the privacy policy of DNS4EU should they want to use the shared IP address of the service. Speaking of DNS for government, the other cornerstone of DNS4EU, we see, I would say, even a huge demand from government to protect the public institutions and the organizations that are run by the government, and to protect them on the DNS level, offering a protective DNS to those institutions and to those public organizations, and motivating them, persuading them that it's a good idea to join, to increase to increase the security protection of their networks. We see we actually see many examples outside EU at the moment, quite successful, I believe. And we see throughout the European Union, we see multiple initiatives on individual governments that are considering or even starting working, preparing such a project to protect the public organization. So this is another approach how we would like to onboard possibly millions of users under DNS4EU. What is important and what is sometimes misunderstood is that DNS4 government does not aim on like government to citizen level. That's not the case. DNS4 government really means government protecting the public institutions that they are running. Yeah. What we see here so far that the multi-tenancy in this case and even multi-tenancy, including some hierarchy of the tenants inside the government, is the key. Is the key how to make the project successful for the governments, so that they can make even the smallest organizations happy, but they can also respond to the requirements of the large organizations, such as ministries, hospitals, etc. Yeah, so the hierarchy basically is and the multi-tenancy is the goal, so that the someone within the government can provide access to different tenants, can set some baseline on the security policies, and but still keeping everything on the DNS level, which is crucial from our standpoint, because it's something that the whole government, that all the governmental institutions can join basically immediately. Yeah, so there is no barrier, there is no blocker. It can be done in a very fast manner, and within several weeks or months, a huge number, hundreds or even thousands of organizations can be onboarded. So what we assume we will see in individual countries will be some organizations will rely on some public resolvers, or let's say governmental run resolvers, that they will just redirect their traffic to, and some larger organizations will ask to have their on-premise resolvers managed by themselves, adhering to some baseline security rules defined by the governments. So this is what we see the governments are considering, and we pretty much like it because it is very much in line of what we are able to do. And the DNS for public, yeah, again, as I have mentioned, this is mostly understood as the DNS for EU, but we don't understand this as a main pillar in the public service. It will be the distributed DNS resolver run on the pretty much expected anycast IP address. It will provide 3 or possibly even more flavors of the DNS. We so far during the planning, we are pretty much sure we will offer plain DNS as well. We will offer protective DNS with the security filtering, and we will also offer the protective DNS plus some option for adult content blocking. What is important? The shared IP will be able to be shared with telcos. Yeah, so the telcos will not lose basically the traffic. It will not leave their premises if they adhere to the policies, speaking of configuration and the privacy defined by DNS4EU. The protocol support pretty much expected. The one which is not available yet, but we have already discussed this. We will work on that. Will be DNS for OARC. But apart from that, not resolver is able to deliver pretty much all of the others. And I would like to address possibly some questions which we are seeing. For example, like DNS4EU and content filtering, how you will filter our content, how you will filter the regular user content, who controls that, etc. So it always has to be taken into consideration in the individual flavors of the DNS4EU services. So speaking of public, there is all the filtering which is done is opt-in only. Now, we don't see any reason. We don't see any reason to apply any particular, even like regional blacklist, etc., on the public service. Speaking of our legal analysis, we don't see that need. So the public service will simply offer the three flavors as I mentioned: the plain DNS, the security filtering, and optionally the adult content filtering. But the user is in charge by the configuration of the destination IP address what will be filtered. There is no one imposing any filtering on anyone. So that's it for public. For the government, it's a different story, because for the government, it's a completely different setup and mindset. The government will provide the service to its institutions. They will join either voluntarily or based on some legislative, that depends. But government is applying this on its own institutions, not on the citizens. And that's probably quite an important notice. And speaking of telcos, DNS4EU will provide support for the compliance with local legislative, with local laws, so that the telco can easily be compliant with whatever gambling blacklists, or I don't know what other blacklists may be present in the country, but it will only like the particular telco deployment. Speaking of privacy, which is another point of view on the services, how we see the public service, we see it as a fully anonymous service. Yeah, the public one, where there is no registration, there is nothing, fully anonymous. No personal identifiable information will be stored whatsoever. There may be, we may introduce some premium services on top of the public one, where there may be a need to identify the user, but that would be explicitly communicated in some terms of usage for the particular paid commercial premium service. So that would be a different track. The public free one will always stay fully anonymous. For government, it's a bit different. Again, it's a bit different approach. For government, it's more like a security tool and more like a security precaution, and therefore, on the quite the opposite, we expect that the IP addresses will be locked, and quite some details will be locked, because the individual institutions may be and will be that's what we hear from the government, will be actually very interested in the analysis of the traffic. They will be eager to understand what are the security incidents. They will be eager to understand what are the baselines of their DNS traffic, etc. And they will want to know what client IP addresses are behind the particle traffic. Yeah, so it's a completely different track. Yeah, for government, and it's an explicit step. I would compare it to a situation where a hospital decides to deploy a firewall, and they are logging all the IP addresses, they are logging all the traffic. So it's a very similar situation. It's some security tool being deployed to that institution. For telco, that's a bit tricky, because for telcos, we can imagine two flavors of deployment. One is using the shared IP with the public service, yeah, which directly links the telco to the privacy policy of the public service. So whenever the telco decides to use the shared IP, wants to use the shared IP, they will have to adhere to the fully anonymous privacy policy. They will have to follow the same policy as will be defined by the public service. There may be another option if the telco doesn't want to run the DNS resolver on the shared IP addresses, and they will lose some major advantages. But they still may be interested in running the DNS4EU resolvers. They will run it on their own IP addresses of their choice, and then they will be in charge of the privacy policy. Basically, the same situation as they are now. We have been already like discussing some. We have been already discussing the anonymization part for the DNS for public. Basically, the schema and the plan is that, of course, the DNS resolver, and it will be described in the privacy policy, for some brief period of time has access to the client IP of the client to be able to respond, to be able to process the request. However, on the logging level, and the logging will be done done on processing of the DNS step produced by the node resolver. The anonymization will be applied before anything is written to any permanent storage. So I believe that's quite important. We are following the RFC 8932 with the recommendations for the DNS private service operators, and will most probably follow the logic that we will log source ASNs to be able to deduce and to provide some analytics point of view on the data. On the a very brief insight on the node resolver development that is being discussed. We see that I think there are some possible candidates. There are a lot more actually, but these are somehow like popping up as possibly the hottest candidate. One of the things is definitely the availability of some DDoS protection directly on the node resolver level. Yeah, so we will introduce something directly on the node resolver. I'll not comment any further. We believe it's a good way forward, and hopefully it will contribute to the open source options on how to protect the DNS resolvers against similar attacks. We are discussing the possibilities on fallbacks, on unavailability of authoritative servers, as we are seeing such a situation frequently, to make sure that the whole Anycast distributed resolver behaves the same, no matter which particular node you ask for. What we are seeing is that some particular nodes may encounter particular IP blacklist when trying to communicate to an authoritative server and being unable to provide an answer to the client. Although if you ask a node like next to it, hosted on a different IP, such a node will be successful and will be able to communicate with the authoritative server. We would like to ensure through some fallback mechanism that in such situation, the node will be able to obtain the answer, or will try to obtain the answer from some secondary node to provide the same level of service. There are some cache prediction improvements scheduled on the node resolver as CZNIC sees quite a lot of space for improvements there, and for the distributed resolver, keeping the cache warm is a priority. And as mentioned, the DNS-OARC protocol support is also scheduled. Although we don't see that much clients supporting the DNS-OARC, however, no matter how this will evolve, we will deliver that support over the course of the project. And picking the course of the project is scheduled for 3 years, started 1st of January this year, and will end 31st of December 2025. During the project, the individual services as described will be prepared, run. This year, basically, we are focusing on design, architecture, the legal documents, and the overall expectation from the project. Next year, we expect to have some pilots or even running deployments within telcos and governments. And 2025, we would like to publish we would like to go out with the public DNS service for the whole EU. Starting 2026 and further, there will be no further contribution from European Union for the operation of the service. So the whole consortium is like focusing on making the service viable also commercially, yet still adhering to the principles that we have discussed here today. So definitely there will be no like change in the principles like start of 2026. We will continue with what we have designed here, but it will be like fully funded by the private budget. Yeah. And that's basically it from me. I'm aware it wasn't really technical, and it's due to the status of the project. Yeah, we are quite in the beginning, and I'll be happy to provide more information in the future as the project evolves, and we'll be happy to answer to any questions may arise.
Hi, Vittorio Bertola. So first question is easy. I mean, I didn't get when is the launch date for the public service, but then I have a more complex question. I was struck by the policy point you made that you don't plan to apply any filter into the public plain DNS service, if I get it well. So not even the national mandatory filtering lists. And well, I guess you checked with the lawyers. So I assume this is legal. But did you check this with the Commission? Because in political terms, having the European Union fund a DNS resolver that allows people to bypass the national blocking laws on whatever, football matches, season, whatever you want, could be politically heavy. So I want to be sure that first I understood it correctly, and second, the Commission is okay with this.
Okay, thank you for the question. So the launch of the public service is scheduled for 2025. Yes, don't have the particular date yet, but it will be the third year of the project. Speaking of compliance with the law, it's actually pretty straightforward, because what European Commission expects and requires is that the service is compliant with the national regulation. And the national regulation, as far as we see at the moment, as far as we have analyzed the member countries, is imposed only on internet service providers, not on public DNS resolvers. So public DNS resolver is not an internet service provider. It's not obliged to apply the regional blacklist. So I'll use the example from Czech Republic. There is a gambling blacklist maintained by the Ministry of Finance, and this is only imposed on the internet service providers. No public resolver, should it be DNS4EU, should it be Cloudflare, Google, Quad9, the others, don't have to apply such a blacklist for anyone using the service, and we will follow this path.
Shane asks, how does the EU expect for the service to run without any funding? Shouldn't they just pay for it? Otherwise, the consortium will have motivation to focus on paying customers and provide worse service to encourage people to pay.
Actually, from our point of view, I wouldn't apply for the project if that would be fully funded by European Commission. For one very reason, because the thing that it has to be commercially viable. Strongly believe it will push us and the whole consortium to provide a quality service, to provide something that the stakeholders, the government, telcos, or even the public, if there will be the commercial service, will be willing and will be happy to pay for, because it will bring them the value. Yeah. So from my perspective, we provide the value, and if someone is willing to pay for it, and we will be able to sustain the service through this funding, it means it's successful, and it means it does what the stakeholders expect. So that's our point of view. It will be commercial. It will be a commercial thing. That's clear. We are not hiding that. We are not even trying to mask it. But still, there always will be the public part, free part funded by the revenue from the commercial part.
Jim Reid, freelance consultant, who used to be an EU member and wish still was. I've got a whole bunch of questions for you, Robert. First of all, thank you very much for a very informative presentation. I think this is the first time, certainly I've had any information in detail about what the DNS4EU project is going to look like. So that's been very, very informative. I'll restrict myself to a couple of very short, technically focused questions. The first one is, will the resolving server support the DNS extended error codes to indicate things like a response has been filtered or been rejected on policy grounds? And my second question is, will you have more than one DNS implementation for the resolvers? You only spoke about not DNS, and I hope you're going to have some considerations so that you don't have a monoculture and therefore a single point of failure.
As well for the kind words and for the questions about the extended code. Yes. Basically, we already support them at the moment. We are more closely following the support mostly on the browser side. We understand that the code can be already processed by some parties, but what will be very strong motivation and very strong focus whenever this is supported in the major browsers. So yes, we have been speaking about this, and we will provide support for the EDE. And speaking of multiple different software implementations to be included, this hasn't been decided. So far, we know that not resolver will be definitely involved. We are looking into other options. It may happen that we will decide to involve other implementation only for a particular stream, such as the public DNS, and we will not use the other implementation for government and the telcos. Depends on the complexity. Yeah, so we are discussing that. It hasn't been decided. And so there is a chance it will just be a not resolver, but I understand the gain if we are able to involve multiple implementations.
Thank you for that, Robert. But I would just urge you to please think about this very, very carefully. If you look at what happens with most TLD registries, they do not operate a single DNS platform. They have several implementations that they use to avoid single points of failure. And a project of this scale probably needs to have a similar kind of approach, albeit on the resolver side. I'm not trying to denigrate the not resolver server in any way. It's a great piece of software, but there are other equally great and also open source resolver implementations out there, and they shouldn't be discounted just because of the fact they're not yet on your radar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Andrew Kepling, 419 Consulting. First, just picking up on the point Vittorio made, I think the Commission is sensitive to the need to provide a service which is compliant with national legislation. And I guess the current case, Sony Music versus Quad 9, will at least provide a test in Germany, potentially set a precedent as to whether resolvers have to comply with national legislation. I think at the moment, all the open resolvers tend to treat it as being optional, whether they should comply with legislation or not. So that may change. So second question, though. Oh, sorry, my question. If you're supplying telcos, which seems like an eminently good thing to do, given all the legacy infrastructure, which it does need to be updated to provide a sort of modern DNS capability. By the time you provide the service, NIS2 will be live next October. So have you considered how you'll be compliant with NIS2, certainly the cybersecurity clauses, because I think as you'll be part of the supply chain for telcos, so they will have to see that compliance in order to purchase the service. That will be required. Thanks.